Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another JINSA update on the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm Ari Chukral, JINSA's Assistant Director of Foreign Policy. I'm honored to be joined by IDF retired Major General Yaakov Amidror, a JINSA Distinguished Fellow and former Israeli National Security Advisor, as well as IDF retired Major General Yaakov Aish, JINSA's Senior Vice President for Israeli Affairs, and a former Israeli Defense Attaché to the US and Canada, as well as Head of Operations for the IDF General Staff. As always, you can find the latest information and analysis that JINSA has produced at jinsa.org, including daily updates on the war that we produce each weekday. I welcome listeners to use the chat function in Zoom to ask any questions of our panelists. I would like to start first by acknowledging that as we prepare to celebrate Hanukkah, today is the 2-month anniversary of Hamas's brutal attack against Israel on October 7th, the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust, which killed over 1,200 people, most of whom were civilians, and kidnapped over 240 hostages. Thankfully, some of those hostages returned to Israel as part of a pause in combat. Our thoughts remain with all of Israel, especially with the families of the hostages and those who have lost loved ones during the attack or since, including IDF soldiers who have been killed during the war. In addition, our thoughts also remain with the entire global Jewish community who has faced a surfacing of rampant anti-Semitism since the war began. To begin our webinar today, when JINSA last hosted a webinar update on the war on November 30th, Major General Amidror, you had predicted that the pause would end within the next 48 hours or so. Prescient as always, the following day, Hamas fired rockets at Israel and the pause ended. With that, General Amidror, I'll turn to you first for any thoughts you have on the 2-month mark since October 7th, and then to provide an overview on what led to the breakdown of the pause, as well as how the situation in Gaza has changed since.
Thank you for the opportunity again. I think this week is very important week after the break of the ceasefire, which was ended because Hamas didn't fulfill the agreement and didn't provide list of women and children, which is still holding, and then open fire. So that was very easy to explain. After the break of the ceasefire, Israel entered to the first time to the south part of Gaza, and we are now fighting around the center of Khan Yunis. I think that the forces that are there are not big enough, and we will have to bring more forces there because the south now became the center of gravity of what Hamas has in the Gaza Strip. After the success in the north, which will be ended probably within a week, the forces in the north are moving from the sea from west to east to reach the Israeli border, and then we will have a full military control of the area, and we will have to begin the stage of expose and kill in areas in which the opposition will not be as strong as in the first stage. And parallel to that, we have to broaden our forces and the places that they are taking control of in the south. Should we go to Rafah or not? Good question. But the center now is Khan Yunis, in which there is a huge underground facilities of Hamas, probably many of the hostages, and probably the leadership itself. And this is why the war in Khan Yunis, in spite of the fact that it is not as urban as Gaza City, is not going to be easy. The combination of underground system with hostages, and because it is the most important strong point of Hamas today, will give it. It will not go. It's not going to be easy to fight there. The success up till now is very clear. Wherever we decided to go and to reach the strong points of Hamas, we succeeded to do it. Hamas didn't succeed to stop it or to block us in any place in which we decided to go. We are doing it very slowly. I explained last time why the moving is so slow. The benefit of being such connected to the ability of the intelligence, the air power, either it is from RPVs or F-16. It's taking more time, but it's allow us to save the life of many Israelis and many civilians because they have enough time to move from the battlefield. We have something new to help the civilians to move. We made a grid of, I think, 600 designed squares in it that we can tell the citizens where to move and from where to move very precisely. So it makes their life easier. Not everyone has to move at the same time. The safe haven in the Muasi is still functioning. It is very bad, but yesterday some people of Hamas decided to launch rockets from the safe haven, from the Muasi area. First time, they don't have infrastructure there. It was probably smuggled in, and they launched it into the south part of Israel. But we decided that we are not striking into this area because it is very crowded with refugees which moved from the north based on our promise that will be the designated safe haven. So we decided not to retaliate in this area. We are cleaning the north and we are moving in a good tempo in the south. In Lebanon, we see some escalation, but I think it is more about the number of Hezbollah people, members which had been killed by us, probably more than 3 in one day. And they killed one civilian, which is something which is out of the rules of conducting the operation there. We retaliated. We don't know the results of the retaliation yet. But I don't see a change in the principle of both sides that they don't want to escalate the situation for a big war. Of course, the question what should be done in Lebanon after or parallel to the last stage in Gaza is still one of the most important questions that we are facing. In Israel, we had to make decisions. There are some rumors about efforts of the French, the Americans, and others to put pressure on Hezbollah. My assessment that nothing will be achieved by diplomacy, but maybe based on the experience in Gaza, they might be more cautious than in the past. So the attempt to achieve it through diplomacy was the effort, I think. If my assessment will materialize and we will learn together with the French and others in America that they don't move to the north according to the decision of the United Nations 1701. Then Israel will have to make a decision what we intend to do relating to Hezbollah threat, because Hezbollah threat, you have to remember, is 5 times, if not more, bigger than Hamas. And we are not going to make the same mistake in the north as we did in the south. And we have to find something to bring the people living there back to their homes. By the way, the many Lebanese people evacuated the South Lebanon and moved towards Beirut. The pressure is very strong. They hadn't been well accepted by the people in the north, but they understood that they don't want to be part of the battlefield, and they moved to the north. Another area in which something happened during the week is Yemen. First of all, now the Red Sea is under control of the Houthis, and most of the Israeli cargo will go around Africa and will not go into the Red Sea, because we don't see the world doing something to stop the Houthis. It is very dangerous for the international community, but because it's only Israel, no one is rushed to change the situation on the Red Sea, which is first time, I think, in the last many years that there is a declaration of a siege by a state controlling the sea, and in this case is the Houthis, and the world is accepting it because it's only Israel, so it can work on. In Judah and Samaria, there is nothing new. We are arresting every night and many days terrorists. We succeeded to minimize the abilities of the Hamas in around Nablus, and now we are working very hard in Jenin to achieve the same target, to minimize the abilities there. There is still work to do, but basically the situation in the West Bank was not changed. The IDF is and the Shabak together, very intensive in their operations. Up till now, we arrested during the operation, or parallel to the operation in Gaza, around 2,500 Palestinians in the West Bank, and almost 250 had been killed. These are the numbers. It's a big number. I mean, it's 5 or more times than in average year in the last few years. So these are the areas in which there was a lot of activity. The people begin to speak about the day after. And this is a question that Israel will have to face and to decide what. We made clear what we don't want. Don't want Hamas. We don't want to have any military existence there. We will not agree to any organization that will try to rebuild the ability to threat Israel. We want a military parameter along the border, because we don't want the Palestinians to reach the fence. A mistake that we did in the past. We allowed them to do it. A big mistake. And the freedom of action for Israel in Gaza Strip. The example that we have in mind, it's not exactly the same. It's not parallel. It's something like Jenin. We have an info today. No Israeli forces are now in Jenin, but tomorrow they will be there if we have the information which bring the decision maker to say, okay, this is the information. Go and arrest those people or destroy this facility, and so on and so forth. We are doing something equivalent in Syria in the last 11 years, and something which is not equivalent, but we are doing something with the same logic in the West Bank successfully, and we are doing it very precise, so the collateral damage is minimum. And for us, it's very important, because we don't want anyone to survive or to renew the ability to attack Israel in Gaza. So it's very clear that we will retain this freedom of action in Gaza. But we don't know what will happen relating to the administrative civilian authority in Gaza. We don't want Hamas. The Americans want reformed Palestinian Authority. I don't see how the authority is ready to be reformed, but this is what the Americans are saying. And the Palestinian Authority is a very corrupted, inefficient body. And remember, they are providing money to all those which had been killed. They're fighting Israel, meaning terrorists. They will pay probably to all the terrorists which we killed in the 7th of October and afterwards. So I don't see this body of which is supporting indirectly the terrorists will be a good neighbor. But this is the dream of the Americans. The second option that people are speaking here, I don't know how it will be materialized, is a kind of international body, which would be, I don't know, money from here and responsibility from there and police experience for another place. It's something that you come in and will begin to rebuild Gaza, because Gaza is in a devastating situation, and at the end of the war, it will be even worse than that, because in urban war, you know the results. Very high percentage of the area will be destroyed. The third option, and if we don't have any other option, that will be the option on the ground, is chaos. No one will be there to lead the population. The population will remain without leadership. And chaotic situation, which is bad for us and bad for the Palestinians. But it's 2 million people. They will have to make their own decision and to elect their own leadership. It is not in our hands to nominate the leadership. So these are the three options. There is a fourth one, which I don't think is realistically possible now. I think that in Israel there is a lot of opposition for this idea, and in the international for sure, is that Israel will remain as the occupier of the Gaza Strip. I don't think that it will be wise to take the responsibility by us, and I think that it will be very wrong from the point of view of our relations with the United States of America. We are not doing this war for conquering more land or to have more to broaden the sovereignty of the state of Israel in the area. We are doing it to destroy Hamas. This is the aim, this is the goal, and we should focus on that, and not having, I don't know, kind of dreams that to renew the settlements, the Israeli settlements in Gaza. It's not realistic and it's not smart. So that will not happen. So there are realistically three options for the day after the Palestinian Authority, or reformed Palestinian Authority, kind of international committee which will do the job, at least at the beginning. And then the options are either a new regime or the Palestinian Authority, or nothing, chaotic situation in which Israel is responsible only for its own security, and the people of Gaza will decide in the future how they want to build their life. So this is the situation on the ground. There was another success of interception of a missile coming from Yemen into Israel, so another test of the Arrow system, which is very important for us to be sure that this system works. So operationally, it was very good exercise for the whole anti-missile systems of Israel. All of them had been tested during the war with very, very good high marks, and the result you can see. By the way, the number of missiles and rockets which had been launched in the last 48 hours from Gaza is very minimal. So the number is the ability is reduced by the fact that the IDF is there more and more, controlling more land and areas, so they don't have not enough missiles and not enough places to launch from. And from this point of view, the situation is relatively good. I think that we had 14 hours without even one rockets launched into Israel. So I think that this is a good description of the war in all the front. And you have question, of course, I'd be more than happy to give more information. I'm sure that Aish has better information than me, so he can add if he wants.
Okay. Thank you, General Amidor. Yes, Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. I'm sorry to disrupt the General Amidor. I just got in. I was in Israel for a few days. I just got in literally a few minutes ago, and I'm sorry I didn't get in at the very beginning of the Zoom, but I just wanted to say one thing, and maybe I missed it if it was already discussed, but I want to express on my own behalf and on behalf of the whole organization our deepest condolences to Gadi Eisenkot, previous Ramatkal, previous chief of staff for the IDF, on the death of his 25-year-old son, Gal, in Gaza. I believe he was a paratrooper. I didn't know him. But General Eish and I were just with Gadi yesterday for a while in Jerusalem. Gadi, as many of you know, is also an observer on the War Cabinet, is a member of Knesset, and a highly regarded general and chief of staff for the IDF. And in a country that is not short of folks who criticize each other. I've never heard anybody ever criticize Gadi Eisenkot before, and on any level. And I think it's must be a horrible, he must be going through a very difficult period right now. And we just want to express, I want to express personally and on behalf of the whole organization, our really deepest condolences to Gadi Eisenkot. And it also brings home the costs of this war that Israel is battling. I think Aish or General Amidjor could fill in exactly how many IDF soldiers have already passed away. It seems like every day there's at least another two in Gaza. The numbers is they could fill in, but also I want to also say that obviously in America, it's already in Israel. But in America, it's already the first night of Hanukkah. And, it's a celebration of several things. Hanukkah, one is a military victory, but also it's a reminder of Israel's long-standing ties, settlement, and sovereignty in in the state of in the land of Israel. And it also is another reminder of how Israel, unfortunately, has had to fight many civilizational battles for its very existence. Then there was the Hellenistic Greeks. The Greeks are now Israel's close friends. Today, it's the Iran-backed genocidal Islamist terrorists in Hamas, and of course Hezbollah and other places. So anyhow, I think it's a moment to reflect. I think tonight, at least in America, as we light our first Hanukkah candle. But to go back to the first thing I want to say again, I want to express my deep condolences to Gadi Eisenkot and his whole family for the loss of their son in Gaza. So thank you. I'm sorry. Go back to our regularly scheduled program, but I think it was important to say. Thank you.
It is.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
General Eish, I will turn it over to you first for any comments you have on reaching the 2 month of the war, and then also ask that the IDF has noted that there's been heavier fighting in recent days. What does that heavier fighting entail operationally, and how has it been different from fighting before the pause?
Well, Harry, thank you for having me. I think the way you are asking the question about 60 days into the war is the issue here. I'm not sure when was the last time that we faced 60 days of war, full-scale war in the southern sector with Hamas, with number of divisions, reserve and regular, and at the same time fighting in the north, although in defense positions, but fighting with Hezbollah. Again, the same in the Golan Heights, defense position, fighting with the local militias, and defending in the south against threats from the Houthis in Yemen. And everything which was not mentioned yet is orchestrated by Iran in those sectors. And in Gaza, as we saw it in October 7th, a horrific attack that we should not forget what led us into it. They broke the ceasefire, the same Hezbollah did, the same along the Golan Heights, and now the Houthis are also into the story. So we should remember that when before we are diving into the details. Having said that, when you are thinking about more than 11,000 rockets that were launched towards Israel, we have not only 360,000 reservists that were called, but also more than 200,000 Israelis that were uprooted from their houses in the north and in the south. Again, something without a precedent. And more than 1,200 Israelis that were killed, some of them slaughtered. And add on that, as a segue to what Mike just mentioned, 411 soldiers that were killed since the beginning of this war on October 7th. So this is the context. It's not something that we have chosen. It is something that was forced on us. And right now, it seems like we are moving into the last phase of the war in Gaza. And I emphasize it. In Gaza, and the pressure on Hamas is bearing fruits. And we can see already those who started to give up and to step out of the tunnels or the houses and simply raise their hands. And this is the beginning. We are in good control in the northern part of Gaza, good control in Gaza City and the neighborhoods surrounding it. And now we are mounting a lot of pressure in Khan Yunis, and we can see the results of this pressure also in the area of Rafah and the other refugee camps in the south. So to my assessment, we are going to see the results or the culmination of this pressure in the next weeks. And this is exactly what we are aiming to achieve if we want to destroy Hamas capabilities, his control in the area, his infrastructure, and his leadership. And that's exactly what we are doing, while, as I was describing, defending the other sectors.
You mentioned the fighting in the north as well as the fighting in the south. Has there been a noticeable distinction between the intensity or the way the fight has gone in the north versus the south since Israel started in the north and a large number of civilians then fled to go to the south?
Harry, the difference between what you tend to call intensity and not intense is where the missile that Hezbollah have launched is hitting. The one that they have launched today towards an orchard hit a farmer. The one that they have launched a few days ago hit a group of 8 soldiers, and they were injured. So the difference between that and again devastating results, it's a matter of luck or the way we are deployed. Until now, Hezbollah have lost more than 100 militants. We are trying to avoid any civilian casualties in the Lebanese area as much as we can, although we have conducted many attacks. And at the same time, they have tried more than 374 times to attack in Israel. All type of attacks, small UAVs, drones, anti-tank missiles, mortars, rockets, all type of attacks. The fact that we have evacuated more than 42 villages and the city of Kiryat Shmona helped us to save Israeli lives. However, we have more than 60,000 Israelis out of their houses. So we can understand from that before we'll be able to bring them back, we have to change the security condition at the southern part of Lebanon. And it could be, as General Amidro mentioned, a new application of 1701 resolution, or to convince Hezbollah with some other means that they have to withdraw back north to the Litani River. And by that, we'll be able to create security conditions for the residents at that area to be back in their houses and to be able to cultivate their lands and their farms again.
General Aish, how did the IDF prepare during the pause for the resumption of combat, given that throughout the fighting, IDF leadership and Israeli leadership was saying that the pause was not going to be the end of the war, there would be a resumption in fighting. And then with that, did Hamas prepare throughout the pause to fight the IDF again? And are they fighting better or worse since the pause resumed?
Okay, there are four major elements that were taken in consideration in order to preserve readiness. And obviously one of them is logistics and maintenance and replenishment and all the other obvious things that we did in order to make sure that we are in full readiness once the order is given. The second is to update the operational plans as they did. The third was to seize the opportunity and the time that we have for two issues. Both of them are related to intelligence. One is to interrogate those who were captured by us and make sure that we are getting the best intelligence, updated intelligence from them, and then translate this intelligence into updated operational plan. And the fourth element, which is the toughest one, is the mental one, is to make sure that soldiers are sharp and in full readiness once the order was given. And as far as we can see so far, it seems like a good job was made in those dimensions. The IDF started very strong with updated plans. That's what led to the situation that we can see now at the area of Khan Yunis. And they will have to continue to fight as we did till now above ground in the build-up areas and under the ground, which is part of the tough battle. And for those who are judging it, is it slow or fast? The context should be very clear. The context is the mission that have to be achieved. And it's very clear that in Gaza City and the northern part of Gaza, the mission is achieved. We have a good control. Having said that, we have a lot to continue and to clear up above and under the ground. And it is an operational challenge that consumes a lot of time and resources. And that's exactly what is invested in order to achieve it.
If I make two remarks, I think there are two other elements that should be mentioned that during the ceasefire was important for the IDF next stage in which we are now. First is it's not just the interrogation which was mentioned by General Aish, it is also a lot of data which was collected in headquarters and strong points of Hamas and gave us much better understanding of the system on the ground and under the ground, and how to integrate it now to the plans was a very important part of the preparation. And it is continuous because we are catching more and more information, and we have more interrogations in which we can build. The second important part was lessons learned from the experience during the first 3 weeks, and the efforts to transfer all this lesson to the new forces, which are now very active in the south, fresh forces which came in, and the lessons which had been drawn from the experience of those who were there for the first 3 weeks were very important to improve their own capabilities in the future and to transfer all this knowledge and lessons to the new forces coming from into the south was a very important effort. And apparently, from judging the results in the south, I think it was done very well. Of course, you can see from the way that Hamas is fighting that they use the time as well, and some of their success are results of what they learned through through the ceasefire. We knew that this is a price that we have to pay if we want to release hostages, and probably we will face, in some cases, Hamas with more experience and more lessons.
I'm afraid, just to add on that, it's not only a matter of time, it's a matter of material, and especially fuel that we have allowed into the Gaza Strip. Quite a lot of it was consumed by Hamas. And it seems to me that we are doing the same right now, because more than 120,000 liters were allowed today, according to the US request. And this is a very challenging situation, because on one hand, we're trying to avoid the humanitarian crisis inside the Gaza Strip. On the other hand, by allowing this fuel, we know for sure that they are using it for their own purposes in order to operate the generators that provides fresh air into the tunnels and some other activities. So it's pretty challenging situation, and this is part of the time and the humanitarian aspects that we are considering all the time.
On this issue of time, there's been reports that U.S. officials have pushed Israel in the coming weeks, maybe by the end of December or into January, to shift towards what at least has been called lower intensity warfare, realizing that term is certainly relative when rockets are raining down on you. But what could that look like in terms of a different form of targeting of Hamas, either fighters or officials? What could that look like in the next weeks or months?
I think that from the beginning, what we said, and I think that people which are part of these sessions remember that we said, General Aish was the first one to mention it, and we explained that the whole war will be in two different stages. One is very intensive, with a lot of firepower, air force, and so on and so forth, and many forces on the ground. And during this phase, we will try to gain control in the main areas of the Gaza Strip. And then will come the phase in which we will do whatever is needed to expose and to clean the remnants of Hamas, places that we didn't reach in the first stage, to go more into the underground tunnel system, which is huge. I think no one has an experience with such a huge underground tunnel system. We were surprised by the lengths of the tunnels and the sophistication of the situation under the ground. I saw today some papers that have been prepared by the intelligence about the tunnels. It's huge, and we need time to clean it and to destroy it afterwards. So that will be the two stages, and I think that if we will have enough more, probably 1-2 months, we will be at the end of it will be the end of the beginning. It will be the end of the first stage, and we can move to the second phase, which will be less intensive. And by that, I think we can meet the needs of the Americans to show that the war is not endless.
Eric, I'd like to say a word about that. Few questions were asked. One, how the Israeli government is going to decide if the strategic goal is achieved. And to my opinion, there are 4 crucial elements that we will have to analyze. One is Hamas leadership. We have to eliminate this part. The second is to make sure that what they have built as a terror army doesn't have the will to fight, and most of it is either eliminated or was taken as prisoners. The third element is their command, control, and logistics capabilities, which we can already see and most of it is broken. And take a look at their ability to launch. This is one of them. And I'm not talking here about sporadic launches. And the fourth element, which is very much connected to what General Amidor just mentioned, is their ability really to control what is going on with the civilians inside Gaza, i.e. kind of a police or internal affairs authority. And it seems that in that sense, they are already losing control. You can see what is going on with the humanitarian aid going into Gaza. The rest of the elements, this is exactly what we are judging. We can see already today the IDF have released very clear pictures of few dozens, I would say few hundreds, Hamas terrorists that simply decided to give up. And at the same time, you can see in other areas those who are still fighting. So this is a very important element that will be a genuine reflection if we are achieving or not achieving our strategic goal inside the Gaza Strip.
General Amidor, there have been reports of the IDF preparing to use water pumps to flood tunnels in Gaza, and I believe IDF Chief of Staff Herzi Levy has even commented on this. Anecdotally, this is something I hear a lot of questions about from the American public. So what are the considerations that go into flooding tunnels with water? And if you can maybe comment on how Israel has previously flooded tunnels during earlier conflicts.
We don't speak about the means and the tools that will be used to destroy the underground tunnels. Water is one of the elements that logically should be taken into account, but it's not the only one. And we will do whatever we can to leave Gaza after destroying all the underground tunnels.
I'd like to remind everyone that they can ask questions of the panelists in the chat function, and I'll combine a few questions together. Is Israel worried that with the operations ongoing, the airstrikes, the ground operations, that it's creating another generation of potential Hamas fighters or another terrorist organization? And then the inverse of that, we've seen recently reports of Palestinians in Gaza who have been frustrated, certainly with Hamas and their stealing of humanitarian aid and things like that. So what is the Israeli perspective on the domestic situation that's ongoing inside of Gaza?
I admit that I don't like this kind of question, because the assumption is that because what Israel is doing now, the terrorists will have more popularity in Gaza. After 7th of October, with all due respect, this question is not relevant. Without doing what we are doing now in Gaza, what we had in 7th of October is kind of primitive barbarian atrocities that no one show in the world since the Second World War. Even ISIS and Al-Qaeda were not so primitive and barbarian in their actions. And that is before the operation in Gaza. And what we learn is that, with all due respect to all the notions that if we will behave nicely, the other side will be less vicious, our lesson is totally different. We should not let them leave and not let them have the capability. And about intentions and hearts and minds, it's very nice when you are 1,500 miles away from the area. When it is 15 kilometers, what important is capabilities. We will live with the intention without the capabilities. We will not live with the capabilities with the intentions. So the lesson of 7th of October is very clear. You know, we had been preached by so many people so many years about the sensitivity situation in Gaza and the humanitarian crisis and so on. Now we understand all the money which was provided by the Americans, by the Europeans, by the by the Qataris, by us. All the money went to build the capability of Hamas. When you see the picture from within the tunnels, you understand that nothing went to solve any crisis. There was a crisis. I'm not sure that there was a crisis, but nothing went to solve any crisis. Everything went to build the military capability of Hamas. We are not going to make the same mistake again. We will not let anyone to build something equivalent to what Hamas had, or even the beginning of what Hamas had in Gaza. And if for that they will have to suffer and will be crisis here and there, we are very sorry. The lesson was learned in 7th of October. The 7th of October symbolized the day in which Israel does not have any obligation towards the people of Gaza, but one, to secure the state of Israel. We tried the other way. We worked very hard to promote their economy. We let people from Gaza to work in Israel. We gave people to give money to Gaza. We helped people to make many plans about how Gaza will have electricity and so on and so forth. But at the end, what we had is the 7th of October, with the butchering of civilians, raping women, burning babies. We are not going to do the same mistake again. So I don't see any crisis. I don't see any reason that Israel will give up the goal of destroying Hamas. I don't see any alternative to that in the future. And if someone has an alternative, I am more than happy to learn. But remember, we are not 1,500,000 miles from ISIS or Al Qaeda. We are 15 kilometers from. To understand, we are killing today Hamas 15 kilometers from the houses in which they kill the families of the Israelis living there. So it's not equivalent to anything that we had in our history, and we are, with all respect, all these notions and lessons that if we behave that way, we will have to face next generation of terrorists. The previous generation was bad enough.
General, I shall combine a few more questions that we have in the chat for you. How does Israel assess whether Hamas's leadership is still in Gaza? Maybe you can comment on the operational leaders that Israel has already killed so far in combat, and Israel's effectiveness at accomplishing that, as well as how can Israel ensure that it's eliminated Hamas when it certainly has leaders who are outside of Gaza in countries like Qatar.
That's what I was trying to explain a few minutes ago. Let me describe it again. First of all, we did kill a few dozens of their leaders. Most of them are at tactical level, and definitely it's not enough. We have more to do. Then this is why we are in the area of Khan Yunis, and this is why we are fighting above and under the ground at the area of Gaza City and some other neighborhoods. There is still work that has to be done. Regarding their other infrastructure, when we are clearing up an area above and under the ground, it includes their command control capabilities, emptying their depots or demolishing those capabilities. By that, practically speaking, taking their logistics and logistics capabilities and cutting their supply routes, as they have had it from mainly the south. The last element that I mentioned was their internal authority that deals with the civilians, which is basically already not functioning. And that's why you can see what they called in Arabic fawda. You can see that they don't have control, and when the humanitarian aid is coming in, civilians are simply storming the trucks and the warehouses or the tents. And you can see these phenomena mainly in the area of Rafah and the other refugee camps. And you see something else. You can see that they don't hide what they think about Hamas. They are already declaring it. There were few cases that Al Jazeera journalists were trying to interview them. And when they started to curse Hamas, they immediately stopped the interview. This is a very clear sign that together with those who are giving up and surrender to our forces, you can understand that they are already losing control in some areas. Again, not in all areas. In some other places, we will have to finish that work, and it will take us, as I said, I assume a few more weeks. Just to add something else about what General Amidor was saying, because people tend to forget that in 2005, we disengaged from Gaza and closed the gate after us. We left Gaza. Not before we have demolished 18 Israeli settlements that were inside Gaza. And then we allowed billions of dollars into Gaza by Qatar, some others in Europe, to include the support from the US. This money went to build the infrastructure of hundreds and hundreds of kilometers of tunnels that we see today, to include rockets, labs, workshops, and all the other capabilities that they have built. And for those who are still asking what will happen with the next generation, let's speak about this generation that did these atrocities. So what do you think will be the results from these fathers and mothers? What people think that will come from these killers and rapists? Something new? And what are the alternatives? After we have allowed more than 120,000 Palestinians to go into Israel and to work on a daily basis from Judea and Samaria and from the Gaza Strip. What they did with it? Instead of going into a mosque or a house and find books and a clean class, what we have found there is depots with munition. This is what we are dealing with. So I think we should not be naive, especially not after October 7th.
Certainly. General Amidor had addressed the northern front with Lebanon in his overview. General Aish, we've covered a lot on Gaza, but I'd like to ask you if you have any thoughts on how the northern front has proceeded in the last week, as well as the reports about a possible border deal similar to the maritime border deal, and how feasible that could be amid fighting.
I think regarding the North, the way to address the challenge is to ask ourselves what type of conditions we should provide as security conditions to the Israeli residents of the North. And it's the same residents that are watching what have happened in October 7th in the South, and they are asking themselves, are we meeting their very basic demands? And this is something that our political echelon will have to address, and the IDF will have to execute. And as I mentioned already, there are not too many options. It's either to see an execution of 1701 by diplomatic means or internal UN forces or something else, or some other means. I don't see any other options over there. And I must admit that I'm not very optimistic.
So we had one pause that was extended, I believe, on 2 occasions. What would you assess as the likelihood of another pause in exchange for hostage releases, or another arrangement where hostages could be released?
We told the Qataris and the Egyptians, which are dealing with Hamas, and the Americans, which were very helpful to arrange the first release of hostages, that we are more than ready for to continue. If will be a need, we will pause for a day or 2 or 3, and we will be more than ready to continue the same deal. Now it's in the hands of the Hamas to make a decision if they want to continue. We are ready to do it, and we will ready to pay the price of releasing terrorists in the West Bank and Jerusalem, and to pause and to make a pause in the war itself, stopping the momentum of the IDF, giving Hamas time to reorganize. We know all the prices, but because of the situation of the hostages, we are ready to continue with the deal. If Hamas is ready, tomorrow morning it will be resumed.
We've talked a lot about the physical landscape of the battlefield in Gaza, the Red Sea, and certainly in the north as well. But as in previous wars, Hamas has waged an information war, or I should say a disinformation campaign against Israel. 2 months into the war, how would you assess that information war is going?
I was yesterday in a meeting of a group of young Israelis who volunteered to make the efforts to bring the Israeli point of view to the media, to the world, the social media. Yesterday I have an interview in Al Jazeera, which the interviewer left the interview in the middle because he didn't like my answers. It's a battlefield in which we have to be very precise, not to give false information and not fake ideas. It's a continuous battlefield that should be done more and more, and we cannot cheat like Hamas. I remember the day that the broken rocket failed in the Palestinian hospital in Gaza, and everyone said it's an Israeli mistake, and the number of casualties is around 500 people were killed and so on. And everyone complained about the IDF spokesman who didn't react immediately. And he said, I cannot react immediately. I have to be sure that what I'm saying is the truth. They can lie in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, they say it's an Israeli, and we have 500 casualties. It was not an Israeli, and they have around 50 casualties. And it didn't hit the hospital, it hit the parking near the hospital. But 3 lies in 5 minutes, Israel does not have this attitude towards truth and lies. We are different. It makes our life much more complicated, but we are not going to lie only to satisfy our need for a good media. And of course, when you deal with with newspaper like New York Times, which does not have any real attitude towards truth and can publish, I don't know, everything, almost everything if it's against Israel. And if you deal with a system like the BBC, which were not ready to call the Hamas atrocities a terror action, and when you have to deal with the presidents of Ivy League universities in America, which are not ready to call a duck, and depends on the circumstances. I mean, to call for killing Jews, it depends on the circumstances. I mean, this is the world in which we are living. We are not going to solve all the problems that Israel and Jews are facing around the world, and we have to understand that this is the world that we are living in. They like us bleeding; they don't like us winning, and we have to learn to live with it.
Well, with that, it looks like we're running up on the end of our time. General Amidror, I'd ask if you have any final words.
I said this is a war that we should win because the alternative is devastating. It's a real war of good versus bad, versus evil, and this is, we don't have any other alternative. And if more time will be needed, we will take the time, whatever will be the pressure around the world. Because this is a war that we cannot finish without destruction and elimination of Hamas as a military organization. The idea will be there. The primitive beliefs in the way to destruct Israel will be there. But the ability to do it will not be there, and we will do whatever is needed during the war and after the war to eliminate any attempt to have the capability to do the same, something equivalent or like or whatever, or 1% of 7th of October. It will not happen again, even if we have to kill much more Hezbollah terrorists, and if we will have to remain in Gaza another few months.
General Eish, any final words?
Yeah, just a quick 2 sentences. It's a war that was forced on us. We didn't choose this war, and we are already 60 days into it, and we will be in this war as long as it's needed. And you know, we tend to speak about resources in many places and cases. Here we will fight with whatever we have, because there is no other choice. And it's not only Hamas, it's also the others that we mentioned in this webinar. And I'm afraid that in this sense, I'm not very optimistic. And in order to allow Israelis to live within Israel, along the borders, in a safe way, there is, to my humble opinion, only one way, but to defend those borders. And that's exactly what we are doing right now.
Well, thank you to our panelists and to everyone for joining us today. I'd like to wish everyone a happy Hanukkah and echo my thoughts at the beginning of the webinar that our thoughts are with all of the Israeli people and Jews around the world facing anti-Semitism. Please stay tuned to JINSA's website, jinsa.org, as well as your email for any upcoming products and webinars. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Happy
you.
Hanukkah.
Thank you. Happy Hanukkah for everyone.